I am sitting here today with Masha Carluccia Volcano with a master's degree from Sheffield University in the UK, as well as the University of Belgrade in Serbia. She's been with us at Thrive Wellbeing Center since January 2020, and she has been supporting children, adolescents, adults, couples, and families. Masha has a very wide range of experience and expertise. She is a certified family systemic therapist as well as a psychoanalytic candidate. And so we are going to hear a lot of rich information from her in our discussion today. Welcome, Masha.
Thank you, Sarah. Firstly, really thank you for this opportunity. I think in the area of overstimulation, it is very hard with short videos and content. It is very hard to differentiate, especially for the young people, real information from pseudoscience that is just accessible on our devices. I was thinking what should be our topic because I have so many topics on my mind, and then modestly I decide let's start for the most important topic for us as humans, and that is the meaning of life. What is this life all about, and what makes us happy? I think that is the crucial question that all of us wonder. And sometimes we forget to wonder, preoccupied with our daily lives, with our work, existential questions. But that's why we have teenagers to remind us. It's such a fantastic period of life, such a interesting age. And they don't forget to question everything. So they are like, seriously, are you joking? This is the adult life I should be emerging in? And I think we should listen to their fresh perspective. I think that sometimes we forget what is the life all about and what is important, and how to focus on ourselves on what is important. So this question looks like a very difficult question, like the meaning of life itself, like it's not 42, or maybe it is, like in Douglas Adams' book. But actually, scientists have answered this question for us. And we really got lucky there. So today I would like to talk about one extremely interesting and important research. It was done by Vaillant back in 1938, but it was a longitudinal study. So actually it lasted for 50 years at the time, and then we will see that it is kind of still continuous. So Vaillant was interested in what is the meaning of life, what makes us happy, what makes us decide that the life is worth living. And then he kind of studied the group of men, students from Harvard. So Vaillant is a prominent American psychiatrist and a researcher. And he has done his studies at Harvard Medical School. So there is where he started his big research. Actually, his father sadly killed himself, committed suicide when Vaillant was only 10. So it's no wonder that actually this was kind of his topic, like what makes the life worthwhile. So what he did, he studied the difference between students, and he studied their all the data he could measure. So he gathered medical data, sociological circumstances, their social behavior, psychological behavior, events in their life. He just followed them from their college years to the end of their lives. Mm-hmm. And what he did is that he didn't even know what he will find. He was interested in some personality characteristics, in mechanisms of defense. He was actually a psychoanalyst from Boston Psychoanalytical Institute. So he was interested in mechanisms of defense. This is also a fascinating topic that maybe some other time we can talk about it. I will not go into there, but maybe we can say that he found that humor is very important in life.
Okay.
And then altruism, so that we are interested in helping others. And then sublimation, which is basically art. But that topic aside. So he was interested in this kind of characteristics to see what kind of a person goes better in life, let's say like that. But he found so much more. So he found a statistical difference between two groups of men. And when we say a statistical difference, of course, you know that, but maybe for our wider audience, that means this is science. So statistical difference means that the probability that you are wrong and that your conclusion is not right is less than 5% or even less than 1%. So when we say that we found a statistical difference, that means we are pretty sure
It
in
means
our
also that it's
conclusion.
not due to chance or human error or any of these things. So, like you
Exactly.
said, we're pretty confident in the results.
Exactly, because this study started with 300 participants, which is really a lot for this kind of scope and the volume of a study, and especially being longitudinal. So you had to follow these participants for many, many, many years. And we will see how the study also grew. So it grew to 500 participants. And also you will see that today this study actually has 724
Wow.
participants, which is really amazing. So he found a statistical difference between two groups of men. One group lead fulfilled, joyful, happy life. And what is actually amazing is their physical health was better. So they actually were more healthy and lived longer than the other group of men. The other group were struggling with life in general. They had poor mental health, depression, anxiety, and they had much more worse physical health and lived short. They died prematurely. And now, ta-da-na-na-na, what is this main factor that is differentiating these two groups, and what is really the difference? Am I happy in my life and do I lead a fulfilled life? Is strong social connections.
Yes.
So relationships, strong and deep relationships are factor number one for that makes us happy and that makes our life fulfilled and joyful. I think this is amazing.
It's huge. It's an amazing study. As you were saying, it's longitudinal studies are very difficult to execute, but when we're able to execute them, they give us so much rich information. And to follow the same people over that long a period of time means that the researchers were able to see over different stages of the life cycle, right?
Exactly.
And for them to find that there is this one core factor is critical. And I think the other piece that is very, very fundamental that you mentioned is that physical and mental health are inextricably linked. I think everybody understands the importance and the value of physical health. People, as much as they can, will invest in preventative measures, be proactive in trying to promote their physical health. And for mental health, we're seeing some gains, but it's not quite prioritized. And I think it's really important for people watching this today to know that they are one and the same. Taking care of our physical health is good for our mental health. Taking care of our mental health is good for our physical health. And now you're saying that one of the ways we can take care of both of those things is to be embedded in our social circles and communities. So I have a question for you, and I'm imagining a few people watching this are going to think the same thing. People have different preferences for social contact, right? Some people are a little bit more introverted, some people are a little bit more extroverted. Is it the same benefit? Does an introvert also benefit from having social connection as well as an extrovert? How does that work?
Yes. I think that two extremes like extrovert and introvert are maybe easy for us to, follow, study, define. But I think when we see the nature of human personality and the nature of a particular human being, I think the situation is a bit more complicated. So maybe the aspect of extroverts that we see so bluntly is that they like to maybe like a butterfly, a little bit fly and show themselves, while introverts are kind of maybe shy. We say extrovert feeds on energy from others, while introvert is kind of others take their energy from them because they feel insecure and they lose a lot of energy in their presentation. So when people go away, they're like, oh, like,
Yes,
I
finally.
can relax. But that has nothing to do with the need for social connection. So every human and both of these groups need social connection. Somebody needs to a bit mirror them in the eyes of others, and introvert doesn't need that, but introvert as well needs very close group of people, people who are close to them, people they can confide with. So we all need
It's a human
this
need.
exactly this human touch and social connection and close connection and relationships, important, close, deep, meaningful relationships. We all need that.
Yes.
This is a little bit like social presentation where we see the difference between introverts and extroverts. And just to touch base on what you were saying, they say that a healthy man has 1,000 wishes, and ill man, sick man, has only one to be healthy. And as you said,
Yes.
that there is no health without mental health.
Yes.
So how do we make our mental health priority?
So, just really quickly, going back to the point about the introvert and extrovert, I think you summarized it really well. And I think there are two important pieces for people to recognize that you pointed out. Number one is we use introvert and extrovert as a dichotomous variable. You're either one or the other. However, it's not that simple. It's a dimensional thing. And most of us are somewhere in between. Also can depend on our mood, our state of mind, the group that we're with, the group size, and so on and so forth. The other piece that you mentioned that's really important is that it's a human need. And we have something that's called a sociometer, right? We have a need for that social interaction, but it's not consistent over time, regardless of introversion, extroversion. So, for example, even if you are a social butterfly and you are surrounded by people, let's say your family and friends that you love and are excited about come and visit and stay with you for a month, and you have contact all day, every day. Even the biggest butterfly by the end of that is going to be like, oh my goodness, I need to be alone. And then if they take it a little bit too far, they're going to crave that connection. So it's not a flat thing, it's something that can vary, but ultimately, all humans need it. And we need it for so many reasons. I mean, we wouldn't have survived as a species if we weren't social.
Yes. So I would like to come back to the study with the risk to bore you. So the study was kind of course, continued because it was so huge, and many other institutes have done the same, and British, New Zealand, other in America. But Harvard, of course, continued the study. So we have a very good TED talk from Robert Waldinger. So he is a director now of a Harvard study of an adult development, and he took it to the next level. So he followed also spouses of these men, and they made a difference. So now they included men from all different social background.
Yes.
Poor, rich, wealthy, educated, not educated. So they made a really big diversity to make sure that it doesn't
Everyone was
come down
reflected.
to these factors. And then they follow their spouses, and then they follow their children as well.
Wow.
And it's for 75 years now. So they really follow the person until the end of their life. And they gather all the data possible with medical data as well. And what they found also is that deep social connection and good relationship at the age of 50, for example,
Okay.
is a better predictor of health at the age of 80.
Wow.
Better than other medical data such as cholesterol, for example. So these really meaningful relationships are kind of sine qua non for your health. And it's interesting how intelligent people think similarly. So for example, I was a experience in Dubai, yogi, and he said that the illness that these and to a very or in a relationship, big family, you can be so it is actually highly than a bad marriage. Yes, because very conflictual relationships are doing the opposite for your happiness and for your children as well. So when we are about children, I forgot to mention that they found that the children of these people were also statistically much happier.
Yeah.
How that transfers. So what I want to say is that now I forgot. What was I saying?
You were saying about the better predictor of health outcomes.
How it is down to quality of relationships. So even if you cannot have a relationship without conflict. So conflict is a natural thing, and we don't want to not have conflict.
It helps sometimes.
Exactly. So sometimes my clients come and say, we have never had a fight in our life. Our relationship, that is, peace but then we always think, it's not natural, it's not possible, we are not identical twins. We fight with ourselves, we are not in peace inside of
Absolutely.
ourselves. So it is not possible that we are completely aligned with another human being. We have to have differences, and when we have differences, we have conflicts. If you don't have conflicts in your relationship, that means that you are too afraid to express these conflicts, and that you feel like a relationship will not survive the conflicts. So it is important to put your opinion there, to talk, to have conflicts, to think things through. But it is how do we resolve? How do we repair after the conflict? How do we nourish our relationship? Those questions are making the difference into a good quality relationship and the one that is highly conflictual.
Okay, so what I'm hearing from you is that relationships are at the core of our physical and our mental health. However, it's not the number of relationships, it's the quality of relationships. And when we say quality, we're not thinking about these idyllic relationships that have no conflict. As you were sharing your perspective, which I totally agree with, I was thinking about some of the couples I've seen in the past that have come in and said that to me. And in some ways, it's actually more alarming than when someone is very high conflict because it means very, very surface level, and that can compromise the level of connection. But putting that to the side, having conflict is not a bad thing, and there are ways that we can manage the conflict, that we can express our needs a bit more effectively, and that after we have the conflict, we can repair from that. So that's one thing. And the other thing you said is about isolation and loneliness being very detrimental. And as soon as you said that, the first thing that came to my mind was the COVID-19 pandemic, right? Because, of course, during that time, all over the world, there was a lockdown for different lengths depending on where you were. But everybody at some point in time experienced a lockdown. And there were some negative mental health outcomes as a function of that. I think now we're seeing some research emerge about how it was problematic and particularly problematic for the teenage group. And I'm wondering if a big part of that had to do with the fact that the same level of social engagement just wasn't there. For teenagers, the opportunity to learn and develop their social skills just wasn't there because even if they're staying connected virtually, it is better than nothing. But that in person, real face to face connection just has a very different flavor. What are your thoughts on COVID-19 and isolation and loneliness?
Yes, yes. So I think most of people maybe were protected because they were inside of their families and they
True.
were with people they, love the most and that they're the most important to them. But as you said, teenagers, disaster. Because that is the period when a teenager has to separate from a parent. So they lose this source of validation and connection. And this is biological and natural and should happen.
Of course.
Later, they will come back to their parents if everything is natural and healthy. They will, rediscover this relationship with mom and dad and family. But that is when they are out of their teenage years. So biologically, they are programmed to go out of the nest in that moment. So parents are not serving the function of the connection anymore, and friends are not there.
Not in the same way.
I was so scared. I was so scared. And I think we still see the consequences. I think my teenage daughter, she was entering teenage years at the time. And I can see that she's picking up. But at those 11, 12, they kind of learn to have these coping strategies to just lean on online stuff.
Yes.
And that is horrific for mental and social development. So, push your children to forget about this strategy and just go out more, just be with each other more, just be together, doing nothing. What we say in Serbia, blejage, that is that is just like doing nothing, the art of doing nothing.
Even the explanation, the expression on your face, the hand gestures, everything makes it sound so appealing. I would love to be doing that right now.
Yes. So yes, COVID struck there hard, but I think nothing that is irreversible.
Yes.
I hope so.
No, definitely. And I think you're pointing out something very, very fundamental, which is, well, number one, the main socializing agents in teenage years, just like for us when we were teenagers, was our friends. It wasn't our parents. And so they didn't have that. And a sibling, if they have siblings that are the same age, are just not going to do it in the same way. So they were very reliant on social media. And then social media comes with its own set of challenges, right? With the curated comparisons and the physical distance and inability to connect in the same way. And so having that at very formative years was really, really detrimental. But I too am hopeful that they are going to be able to recover and that we never face something like that again.
So don't get me started on social media
Yeah.
and screen time, because I'm throwing a fit every time when we talk about giving devices to children and them spending most of their time on devices. So whenever I go to some TV or radio show, my teenage daughter in these fantastic years of emerging into
Yes.
society and their values, she's like, "Mom, you can't say that. They'll get you canceled over
Oh,
the
wow.
internet." And yes, we were always afraid of social judgment, and the fact that whatever you say today can become a meme is another level of scary.
Very true.
But when you get into your 40s, you kind of lose this fear a little bit. Every age
Definitely.
has its benefits. But anyway, like social media and screen time, I mean, should we get into that? Like,
Well, I think one of the things that might be helpful as it relates to our topic of finding meaning and purpose and living a joyful and happy life is that social media, in my view, it can be a very helpful and connective tool because sometimes we just don't have the option to interact physically because we live in different places, or even if we live in the same place, lives are so busy and we might not have the ability to connect as much as we like, but it needs to be one piece of the social puzzle. If all of our interactions are through a screen, and also if the screens interfere in our physical interactions as well. And what I mean by that is talking with someone in a distracted way. And there are studies that have been done where if you're talking with someone and you're just looking at the back of their phone, it shows disinterest and disengagement, and it negatively affects potentially the quality of that interaction, and over time might make you feel a bit dissatisfied. So one of the things, and again, maybe this is also a thing about being in your 40s that I've been trying to do a little bit more of, is when I go out and I'm spending time with people that I love, pushing the phone away as much as possible. I don't know if you've ever done this. I was really proud of myself. One time I went out and we all left our phones at home and just went out for 2 hours. And I swear the amount of social excitement and energy that I got from that interaction was exponential compared to usual because you know it's not in your pocket, right? You're not checking it on the way to the bathroom at the restaurant. You are just fully in it.
yes,
Highly
yes.
recommend.
My favorite thing to do is to put my phone on airplane mode.
Oh, yes.
I do that. I do that when it's getting darker.
Yeah.
I do that many times. Like, it's really important. But what I wanted to say, I and that we wouldn't be able to do this podcast in so much. Imagine writing letters. So social thing, but we have. That
Yes.
is our tool. That is our tool. It cannot be something that dictates our rhythm, our daily, whatever it is. I have a friend who is constantly trying to make his life more simple, and he's switching off himself from different media. And I like, for example, Facebook.
Okay.
I use it once in a few days. I just look, the news for 5 minutes. That's it. So he turned himself off from this Facebook. I said, why? Why? I'm not sure why. And he was like, I don't like it, like it's. So we got into the argument. How can it bother you? Because he feels that it bothers him. And Instagram and Facebook, he's luckily still on Instagram. But it bothers him. How do you come to the situation where it bothers you? I'm in control of it. I don't open my Instagram, although I love it. I make my pictures, I make my events, I share it with people, I share some stories. But when I want to, and it's rare and it's under my control, it's perfectly fine. I don't feel it. I feel only the benefit from it.
Yes.
But I can see how children can lose control because it's highly addictive. So we have to do something about children. I mean, first about us, but about children.
Yes, absolutely. And there's so much neuroscience about how it is addictive because of where it's registering in the brain. It's like a quick and easy dopamine hit. People are just constantly refreshing, waiting for that like or whatever kind of notification they're looking for to come through. I think I might be wrong about this, but the young man in my household, the main social medium they're using now is Snapchat, and that is just 24/7 pinging. So it's very difficult to have those limits. And I wonder if your friend recognized that it's so tough to set those limits when you're in the thick of it, and that doing a detox and then kind of getting back to it a little bit more mindfully could be helpful. I did once I only have like a quote unquote professional Instagram account, but of course, I'm connected with people that are in my personal life as well. And I actually deleted the app off of my home screen. I actually don't know where it is, but I have to search for it to find it. And I found that that really helped me because as much as I try to be aware, and I didn't grow up with a computer in my pocket like our kids these days, you're walking to the bathroom in an elevator. It's very easy to quickly open the phone. So
Yes,
if
we have to put our efforts.
boundaries, yeah,
Yes, not to do that.
and rewire our habits.
Yes, but just to say something about Snapchat and actually TikTok format, these short videos. So I have many parents coming and saying we see that the enormous increase in ADHD with children and developmental disorders and like all sorts of mental health disorders that we didn't have before. And what I'm saying to these parents is that their child gets a training in these skills, how to have an ADHD brain, because the screens are training them to shift focus, to have a less depth into the subject, to lose interest in every 5 seconds. As long as you catch on something, it's gone. So this is a hard training, and we know that our brains are phenomenal. They are biological organ that is so adaptive and so flexible. If you train it, if you feed it something, it will catch on it, and it will just close it down. So if you do that in early age, in a critical period of brain development, brain will conclude, okay, this is what you want.
This is how it should
This
be.
is how it should be.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
And I think it's an interesting point. And it also connects to one of the first things you said today, which is about social media and the pseudoscience. So it can impact the way that we receive information, the quality of the information that we receive, the type. A lot of people exist in echo chambers now because they're only kind of being exposed to things that are within their likes or their follows. But at the same time, there's so much out there about different mental health challenges, including ADHD, that's put out there by influencers, by people that are usually not really in the fields, that are trying to kind of sensationalize and give those quick hits of, hey, this is how to tell if you're in a narcissistic relationship. Hey, this is how you know if you have ADHD. And people are not always able to assess that information. And I don't know about you, but I've seen so many people coming to the clinic being like, yep, my mom, borderline personality disorder, saw it on TikTok.
Yes. Yes, exactly. And not only that we like to diagnose people around us, like
Yes.
this is narcissistic, this is narcissistic, this is borderline, but also it's a very modern thing to diagnose yourself with
Yes.
some, if you don't have some mental health disorder, you're not in, sorry.
Yes.
It has to be something. And of course, fighting the stigma of mental health illness is very important. Of course, when we feel that, it's such an interesting thought that is very comforting for me, that whatever I experience, there is no chance that somebody else didn't experience it before me.
Very true.
So on this planet, there is nothing I can feel that somebody already didn't feel or doesn't feel as well. So it's comforting to know that we are kind of together, and it's comforting to know that anxiety is something that we all share. Babies are anxious when they scream, that's anxiety.
Of course.
Babies are depressed. There is a Melanie Klein depressive position. This is a normal developmental position. We all go through depression, which is very different from a clinical depression
Exactly.
in adult age, which can also be very different to very different scales. Sometimes we will need therapy, and therapy is needed for everyone always. It's a fantastic thing. It really helps you grow. But also sometimes with very serious and deep depressions, we will need some medical support and all of this. So we can't, maybe it's confusing to say the depression and use it for babies, for normal human experience, for normal experience in teenage years, and for clinical depression. It's maybe a little bit,
It's
but
different,
these are different
but the
things.
words are used interchangeably. And so, what I'm hearing from you is that there is some benefit, at least, to some of these things being talked about because it is normalizing the fact that mental health challenges are quite common, especially things like depression and anxiety, even at a clinical level. I think 1 out of every 4 people is the most recent statistic will experience directly or indirectly something over the course of their lifetime. So it's good that we're raising awareness. It's good that we're feeling less alone when we're struggling with that. But there is a fine line between I have a symptom versus I have a disorder. And a lot of that gets lost in those really quick reels or TikToks or whatever it is. And that leads to oversimplifying, reductionistic approach as well as labeling, which can also be a little bit stigmatizing in and of itself. So just like with social media playing a positive and negative role in our social relationships, I think it's the same for mental health information.
I think it started with these old commercials. I mean, now we are so used to them, but at the beginning of commercials, it was like, this toothpaste leaves your, teeth 50% whiter. How did you measure
Yes,
50%?
exactly.
And today, like just today, I found on my Instagram something, I forgot what it was, but it was like, and that makes you 70% what? Who measured that? Who told you that? Where did you get that? And
Exactly.
okay, maybe you have an impression, and that's completely valid. Don't serve it.
And that's the and so very brief central route to persuasion. And what we find is people toothpaste, it's not that big of a deal. Just go for, oh, this has amazing, right? Even other brands. That number is enough. Goes back to our information. And I think that's is as rigorous as statistic from there. Discussing a few moments ago, science and real data.
Relationships more.
I think we also, it's up to you. A few minutes if you'd like to say something. Conclusion about the.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Of adult development. Health and mental health are related. Relationships are isolation and
I would just for some we might have that may to make and maintain good quality relation because biologically we function in pairs. How do we deal as Esther there is a moment and coffee and the whole different dimension of that conflict and fight because that means we are in this together. I care about you, I love you, but we are discussing something that is important for me and for you. So yes, we have opposite views and we want to discuss them, but it's you and me together
not
versus
us against each other.
our problem and our issue, not against each other. So I think this makes the world of difference.
Yes, absolutely. And couples therapy is definitely a place and a space where people can learn some of those skills because unfortunately, we do develop some of those skills through our life experiences, but we're not really taught in school how to relate and how to navigate. And every relationship, as we said, is going to have conflict, and we want it to. Conflict is the sign that something could be better, right?
Exactly.
And the way we manage it also can be helpful and productive, especially if it's collaborative as opposed to competitive.
Yes, and how we repair after
Yes.
conflict. So coming back, even with your child, you had a situation, you were angry, you were screaming. Coming back later, not from inferior position, oh my child, I'm so sorry. No, keeping your integrity, keeping your everything, but saying, I'm very sorry that we went through a little bit difficult moment and I just want to say I'm there for you. What do you think? How did you feel? What can we do together?
Because ultimately conflict doesn't and shouldn't define our relationship, right? It's a blip, it's something that we experience, but our relationship is bigger and more important than all of that. And that reminder, the repair after the rupture, is absolutely critical. So I was saying that it's something that can be, obviously there's like lots of self-help and information, just choose your information wisely, but something you can also address in therapy. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, you see children, adolescents, adults, couples, families, pretty much everyone. You can support pretty much everyone.
Teenagers are my favorite.
Teenagers are your favorite. Not many people say that.
I love them.
But you're available to support at Thrive. What are some of the issues or challenges or concerns that you work with?
Well, I'm famous, as you know, but our listeners don't know that I like the most difficult things. So everything that is even like on a spectrum of contemplating life, like suicidal thoughts or self-harm or all these very, very, very difficult things. As I said that at the beginning, teenagers are questioning the purpose and the meaning, and they are struggling with not feeling the purpose and the meaning. And all of this, I think, are maybe some of the most difficult things. And of course, from that they react. They're depressed. Their grades are low. They are impulsive. They do
Mhm.
many stupid things. So all of that is fine. Depression, anxiety is the most common thing that we have in our clinic, and I
And
think
relationship
everywhere else.
challenges.
And relationship challenges,
Mhm.
yes.
Okay, so if anyone wants to get in touch with you, they can find you at Thrive. Thank you so much for all of your
Thank you,
insights. It
Sari.
was such an interesting discussion, and I'm sure that our listeners learned a lot. Thank you again.
Thank you. See you soon.